Yo, what is up, you natural born winners? This is Negative, and today I'm going to show you guys how to play Marth on a Smashbox. I've gone through many iterations and layouts before arriving at my current one, and in this video I'd like to demonstrate for GameCube users, as well as fellow boxers who are working on their own layouts, how well a proper layout should function, and how much it can be optimized. So let's bring my controls up real quick, and I'm going to leave these on screen so that you guys can see what buttons I'm using for which techniques. And keep in mind that the goal is to not have a ton of complicated button presses and combinations to do a bunch of nuanced stuff, but to streamline everything. All your tech should flow naturally from one thing to the next, while being accessible with simple inputs that reduce the potential for mistakes, minimize the amount of travel for the hand and movement for the hand that's necessary, and in the instance where multiple buttons could be used for the same technique, it should provide the least negative outcome on error. I could chop this video up into multiple edits and cut out the flubs and make it clean, but honestly that's not what's important here. Half the point of the video is to show how mistakes are minimized and that when they do happen, they're not critical. So if mistakes do pop up, it gives me the opportunity to talk about why they're happening and how to fix the timing, because most of them are just timing related practice things. So let's turn on the video real quick. And I'm going to talk about movement first, because in Melee, movement is everything, right? Movement's the most important thing. But before I do that, I'm going to talk about the controller itself. So this is the Smashbox, right? We all know that. It's got a ton of buttons on it and no joystick. And because of that, the Smashbox can be a very unintuitive controller, and it has a much higher learning curve than a standard GameCube controller. The reason for that is, on a GameCube controller, I can very easily hit the amount of tilt in the direction that I want. But on a Smashbox, not only do I have to press a sequence of buttons and a combination of buttons to hit certain angles at certain amounts of tilt and the angles in between them, but I only get the angles that I've programmed into the box, and I have to know exactly what all of them are and which combinations, and to hit those buttons on the fly in the middle of a match. So that's where the major learning curve comes in, is that, there's a bit of unintuitiveness when it comes to accessing all these angles. And I just like to point out that there's a balance that you have to strike here. Yes, on a Smashbox, you're going to be able to hit precise angles every time as long as you time it right. The difference is that you have to find the right buttons, know what those angles are, and you only get limited angles to work with. That's the biggest difference between a GameCube controller and a Smashbox. The GameCube controller, you can hit any varying amount of tilt and angle that you want within that gate, right? Within the octagonal gate. Whereas on a Smashbox, you have to program all these all the different angles of tilt beforehand. And if it's not programmed into the box, then you don't have access to it. So the thing is, let's say you're Fox McCloud, right? You know that you've got a bunch of Y and X modifiers and tilts that you get to work with to get all these different angles for your Firefox. And that's great. And maybe they're intuitive and you're pretty good with knowing which ones to use. But the problem is that even then, you're still limited by what walk speeds you have, what aerial drift speeds you have. You don't get all the different ones in between. You only get the specific ones that are available on the box, right? That you've programmed in. So maybe you've got a decent medium walk speed. Maybe you've got a decent slow walk speed, or the fastest walk speed without dashing, right? But that doesn't matter if you can't get good angles for your recovery moves, or vice versa. You've got great recovery angles, but now you've lost like a bunch of your buttons that you use for that. They're not really giving you useful differences between walk speeds and drift speeds. So those are the limitations that you will deal with as a Smashbox user, and it's important to find the right balance between all those things with your setup. The other part of it is, it can be unintuitive because there are so many buttons. Like, look at this thing. There's 20 some odd buttons, right? Because there's even buttons on the side here. But the thing is, one, as a new user, you can replace some of your buttons with different colors to indicate at least a little bit what they are. So when you're first learning it, you can kind of look down and see, oh, like that's where my C button was. Oops, right? But what helps even more than that, because that's not really going to matter once you've gotten a little bit of practice on it. What's going to help way more than that is to divide your controller up and structure it in a way that makes sense. Like with my controller, the entire left side is related to movement and modifying movement only. This button's set to jump, and I'll get to that later. But other than this button, every other button here only concerns itself with movement and modifying the amount of tilt for my movement. Whereas this one only concerns itself with actions that can be done in conjunction or without the directions, right? So I can shield, I can wave dash, I can do aerial moves, I can jump, I can do grabs, and I can do up tilts and jabs and stuff and pivots. That's all right here. So it's easy for me to divide my controller into like left brain and right brain, right? My left hand has only certain things that it even has to concentrate on. And if I know that a certain type of thing I'm trying to do is a right brain action, then my right hand is the only one that like has to find the button. So it makes, when you structure your layout logically, it really, like I cut the amount of buttons in half that I have to consider when trying to look at what I'm trying to do. And it's just going to make it that much easier for people who download your layout and want to try it out and possibly use it to actually overcome that learning curve, right? It becomes that much easier for them to adopt. And that lends itself well, especially if you have different layouts for different characters, right? As long as the layout is intuitive, then you can have a different layout for Fox than you have for Marth, and it's not really going to be a big deal to you because the buttons happen to be where they make sense. If you've got a bunch of buttons that this button's over here just because of one technique, it happens to work better there, this button's here only for one technique, then it's going to be kind of rough. You're going to find that like your hand's out of position a lot and the buttons aren't really like, it's kind of mishmashed. It's kind of messy, right? Try to find the cohesive setup where all those buttons work together and you don't have to move your hand around a lot. You can transition between one type of thing and the other very easily, and everything's where it should be. That's what you want. So let's go into the actual controller itself, guys. So we've got cardinals, right? We've got left and right. We've got up, we've got down, so we can jump, we can fastball, we can dash dance, right? And these are full tilt, right? But you can modify that, and in fact, I have. So these are full tilt, my left, right, up, and down, but not my up, right? My left, right, and down are full tilt. My up is not. My up is about 95% of full tilt or something like that, right? And the reason for that is because I want to have axe shield drop method. So you can see I can dash forward, I can press shield, I can press down, and I'm going to get shield drop. And I'm not pressing anything except for these three buttons. So 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3. Otherwise, you'd have to use a modifier to get your shield drop, right? That's going to restrict the X and Y axis to specific tilts. But because I modified my actual control stick range, it's going to give me the axe shield drop every time if I want it without having to press an extra button. And sometimes that's just, you know, more intuitive when you're running around doing shit on plat and you just want to press forward, drop, and have it without having to press an extra button. So that's why I have that. Next, we've got our tilts, right? We've got tilt 2, tilt 1, and also tilt 1 plus tilt 2 equals tilt 3. So if you press both of these, you get tilt 3. And each of these tilts, tilt 1, 2, and 3, can be set to their own amount of tilt in each direction. And what I mean by that is left and right will be the same amount of tilt that you get to set. So you get like a sideways tilt amount. And then up and down are separate. You can have a separate amount of tilt in the up direction than in the down direction that's independent from the side direction. So you get 3 different tilt amounts. when you use tilt. And it activates all of them. And so if I press left, it's only really using the horizontal. If I press up, it's only really using the vertical. But if I press diagonal, it's using both, right? Because it's modifying both directions. Now, the modifiers down here are called X and Y modifiers. And they're called that because the Y-axis is the vertical axis, and the X-axis is the horizontal axis. And so the Y-axis, being the vertical axis, it modifies the vertical. Whereas the X-axis modifies the horizontal. You can see my walk has a different speed than if I was to press it without. I would dash, right? So let's talk about my tilts first. So this tilt is right next to my movement buttons, my raw, cardinal directions. And so for me, this is my movement-related tilt button. I want to use my most common movement stuff. I want it to be accessible here. So I've got shield drop straight down. If I'm not going to use the axe shield drop, I happen to just want to do straight down shield drop, right? And that comes with its own issues. Because as we can see, if I hold tilt 2, I protect it against tap jump. That's great. But I also protected against crouching, and that's kind of bad, right? Like if I wanted to run up and crouch, right? And I ran up and I held tilt 2 and I pressed down, it's not going to crouch. And if I wanted to crouch cancel, let's say a get up attack or something, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to get the reduced knockback because I'm not actually in the crouch animation. And so that's important to know, that when you are holding tilt 2 after you walk up, you might need to just let go and repress it to activate the crouch. But there's a reason why you can actually make it have shield drop down and also crouch. But I didn't do that. There's a reason for that, and I'll show you. So if I hold tilt 2, right? Normally, this is a tilt. But because it can do shield drop straight down, it's the exact same amount of tilt necessary to make it to where down and A at the same time is going to give me down smash. It's unavoidable. If you can shield drop down, then you also get accidental down smashes when you use down and A when you're trying to do tilts. So you have to live with that. You can't have one without the other. So what I've done is, instead of having this also crouch when I hold tilt, because you can have that, you just make it tilt a little bit further down. The reason why I don't have it is because I can hold down diagonal and be walking, and then I can just go into tilt, right? So I can walk up, or I can hold that, right? So you can go from a dash into a walk and then just do your tilt. But I don't have to worry about accidentally getting down smash, because actually I can move around and I'm already holding down. So there's none of this holding, like pressing down and A at the same time. I'm already holding it because this is my movement related one, right? And I can even modify that movement to be like one of the faster walk speeds or something. But the idea is I'm moving around with this button because it's next to my movement buttons. I want to have access to tilt sometimes without down smashing, but chances are if I'm using this one, it's because I'm trying to be mobile. So I don't want to actually get stuck here and then press buttons and I'm not moving anywhere, right? This is movement. Next, I've got tap jump, right? No tap jump. Disabled that because it doesn't tilt high enough to do that. It'll still give me up tilts. I can do turnaround, up tilts, turnaround, down tilts, right? Very nice. But not tap jump. And what I did keep, however, is that it's important to know that if you dash and then you hold tilt, you can still jump. You can tap jump out of your dash. So you see, like, you can tap jump out of dash. And that's because it's a lower threshold to jump out of your dash than it is to jump when standing still. So you can lower the amount of upward tilt to make it to where that doesn't happen either. But I actually wanted to have this. The reason that I wanted to have it is because I want this button to be movement related. And if you do tap jump, then it's actually going to use your aerial drift speed, like a slower aerial drift speed. So if I'm holding a tilt and then I tap jump, I'm going to get the amount of aerial drift of my current amount of tilt, instead of having like dash jump speed, right? And so like I might want to do like, you know, like pull back into like forward air, right? Or like going for, like without the full amount. Like I'm not trying to do, you know, this like kind of really pulling back type stuff. Just like more of a micro spacing pullback, right? Or like pullback, fast fall, jump, cancel, grab, tomahawk style stuff, you know? And I also use it to turn around, right? So I want to have all that movement related stuff here. And sometimes that means I want to be able to dash and then tap jump out of my dash while holding my modifier to get the slow aerial drift after an explosive dash, right? And be like that. So I can have that option here with that. And I'm never going to accidentally get tap jump doing that. You know, typically the accidental tap jump comes when you're trying to do tilts. And I can do diagonals without getting that. It only happens if I chose to dash first and then tap jump. So it's not really something that I have, you know, happen by accident ever, because I've allowed it to be there. So it's not really an issue. Next, Y1. This is the most important, one of the most important modifiers that I have on my controller, and probably one of the most important modifiers that other people have on theirs. So by default, Y1 is the perfect wave dash, right? It's a very long wave dash, fantastic, right? But it's a few other things. So perfect wave dash is great. Some of the other wave dash lengths that I have, Y2. Y2 is going to give you like a nice long wave dash, but it's still less than the perfect wave dash. This is unmodified. This is my tilt 2. It's just a little bit shorter than my unmodified wave dash. And then my tilt 1 is like, not that, there you go. It's more like a micro spacing, so I can like dash dance around, I can like dash forward and get like a little pullback, right? That's a micro spacing tool. So those are the different ones that I have, and you can tell that each of them are useful lengths, right? So I've got like a medium length one, I've got a slightly less than medium length one, and then I've got a short one, and I've got 2 long ones. So that's pretty good versatility, right? I've got my other tilt button over here. I told you these are not movement related buttons, and you'll see that this is actually the slowest walk speed possible while still registering a sideways input. And so it's not really useful to get around at all. One of the things that I will use it for, however, is like, let's say you're doing like max walk speed and you want to do like, you know, a PC drop. You can kind of use it to activate the PC drop, right? But other than that, I pretty much don't use it for anything movement related. I use it for pivots. So we'll come back to this one when we're talking about pivots. But for Y1, other than wave dashing, we've got a few other things, right? You can't tap jump. You also can't fast fall. Now, I said this one was movement related. I wanted to be able to move around and also fast fall. This one protects against fast fall, and sometimes that's useful, right? But you don't want to have more than probably one button that's going to protect against fast falling, to be honest. Because especially unless it's like, you know, in a certain area, these buttons don't allow you to fast fall, whereas like these buttons do or something, right? You want to be very clear which buttons are not going to let you fast fall. Don't have them randomly spread out like, oh, this one won't let me fast fall. Because what's going to happen is you're going to try to like, you know, do some kind of aerial, right? And fast fall it. And when you're holding the wrong button, you're going to miss the fast fall and you're going to miss the L cancel, right? That's what's going to happen. Because you're using the same timing and you're not going to react to the fact that you didn't fast fall before you hit the pre-programmed inputs that are in your brain. So that is no good. You don't want to have little buttons hiding around that are going to stop you from hitting your fast fall. That's a very, very, this is something that you want restricted only to a few key buttons. but it is useful to have sometimes to be able to, like, hey, I wasn't holding down, but I want to do a waveland, and I also don't want to accidentally activate my fast fall before the waveland, and I need to be able to press my downward buttons here. So you can hit that, hit these, right? And you're gonna switch into the down without having to do any fast fall, right? And you can let go of it if you'd like afterwards, right? But that's how you're going to use it. So it is useful to have that tool, though it is something that you don't want to use very frequently. Other than that, your Y1 is insanely useful for pivots. So once again, once I get to pivots, I'm coming back to this bad boy. And it also, let's see. It's also going to give you the perfect waveland, right? Because it's the perfect wave dash. So it's the angle that you need to get the perfect wave dash and the perfect waveland. So like if you're going to do like that, right? It's pretty easy, but you know, if you're trying to do it like this, you're going to notice that most of the time you're going to get a triangle jump. And there's a reason for that. It's because you literally have to be frame perfect to not get a triangle jump out of your perfect waveland button when falling to the ground. And sometimes fast fall can make that easier, but once again, this button's going to stop you from fast falling. So you have to hit the fast fall before you hit the modifier and then hit these. It's just not a great way to do it. So when you're going to do wavelands, it's better to have a button like Y2, which I'm going to talk about now, which is going to give you a nice long waveland, but it's more lenient. The other one would have given me a triangle jump, and probably a bad triangle jump. That one, however, I got almost the same length, super long waveland, but once again, it's way more consistent. Similarly, my other wavelands, if you just do an unmodified waveland, unmodified waveland is even more lenient than Y2, right? So when you're doing like, you know, like fares into wavelands and stuff, that's the guy that I use most frequently for those types of things where I'm going to be doing a lot of wavelands. But you still have the option to put your thumb there and get that nice, long, super crispy waveland to cover a lot of space. Let's say like in the forward direction to just explosively cover ground and try to grab them or something, right? So that covers kind of Y2. Y2 doesn't have a lot of uses outside the super long waveland, but it is important that it does have one other feature. So it's not going to let me crouch, you know, sad boys. But one thing that it will give me, you'll notice it only modifies Y, right? I'm still getting full dash in the X direction. And so if I'm crouching and I hold this bad boy, I can actually keep holding down, but dash out of crouch. And you'll notice I'm not crouching again. So I don't even have to let go of down to make sure I don't accidentally go into crouch after I've dashed out of it. So it's kind of nice. You just crouch. Like, let's say you ran up, crouched, right? They're going to do get up attack or something. They hit you. It pushes you back a little bit. And then, you know, you just dash right out of crouch as long as you're holding this button. So you get dash out of crouch. Pretty cool. Next thing, let's cover X2, right? This is, as I said before, the fastest walk speed that you can do from standing without triggering a dash. And any of these modifiers, as long as you hold the modifier when you initially press the button, you can let it go on the next frame and do 1.0 walk speed with any of these modifiers, right? As long as it's not enough to trigger the dash initial, you can just let go and get full walk speed, right? So that's also another useful technique. So this one, that's all I really got for that, right? It's my aerial drift speed, like a nice mobile aerial drift. You see how I'm moving? It's not full DI. It's less than that. But it's that nice in between, just a really, really nice feeling aerial drift. So this button is great. And, you know, this one, even less, right? My tilt 2. So you've got a really nice range of aerial drift speeds on this setup. And I didn't have to worry about that because honestly I play Ganon and Marth, so I don't have any characters that need extensive recovery angles. I didn't have to worry about any of my recovery angles. I could fine tune all my tilt and modifier buttons to only deal with, you know, whether or not I want to crouch, if I want to do turnaround tilts, if I want to do, you know, different walk and drift speeds. This is the only thing I had to worry about, which is nice. People that have to actually factor recoveries into their layout will have to make some compromises probably. So now we've covered the left hand, right? Other than Y, we'll talk about that when we talk about pivots. Now let's talk about the right hand. This is arguably just as important because this is where we, you know, you're not going to take any stocks by just running around and not doing any attacks. So let's talk about that. So we got a few buttons over here. Like I said, I'm starting out with movement. So let's talk about movement first. One thing we can do out of movement is shield, right? I use my pinky to shield. And I can... So some layouts, shielding with pinky is not going to be a good look for people, right? They're holding it. And if you have the wrong buttons to try to do stuff out of that, it's really going to like require holding your hand in awkward ways or trying to like put a ton of pressure here because you're trying to contort your hand to do other stuff over here. So if you have the right layout, it can allow you to have a very light press on the pinky. If you notice that you're pressing your pinky down really hard, then you probably have something on the pinky that shouldn't be on the pinky, or your other buttons are not conducive to having that action on the pinky. So you might want to like rethink your layout there. So shielding important, right? But what about stuff out of shield, right? So here we see, right? I can do shield, and then I can do wave dash out of shield. My wave dash is here. These two buttons, just X, and then L, right? So I can just go like that. Dash around, right? Do wave dashes. And it's very, very smooth, right? You see how I'm flicking off the buttons. You want to make sure you get short hop. The easiest way to get short hop is by doing this. If this button and my wave dashes were on the top home row, right? I want my hand anchored here on bottom home row. This is where I'm anchored, and I can extend up here to hit these sometimes, but it's better to have your hand anchored here. You have access to all of these, right? And then your fingers are longer. Some of these can actually hit these without having to shift the hand. But meanwhile, if you're up here, reaching down to get these while staying anchored on the top is kind of difficult, and really it's going to work that carpal tunnel in a way that you don't want it to be worked. So I prefer to stay bottom home row. Depending on how large your hands are, some people, you know, may feel more comfortable with the top home row. It just depends on kind of your physiology, right? But for me, this is perfect. And I want all my movement accessible from this position. That should be one of the primary things when you're making your layout. Make sure that you can shield and wave dash and jab and grab and jump and aerial without requiring almost any hand movement at all. So here I can dash dance, I can modify my directionals, I can wave dash, I can shield, I can wave dash out of shield, right? All without having to move my hand more than this. More than just moving my thumb. That's all. And this thumb, right? Just here. No movement. And you see, I've got my C right is over here. My C left is here. And my C down is here. Now, why do I have my buttons along here? One, I can move my thumb like this. I'm literally not... there's no tracking where my thumb has to move. Like sometimes when you're shooting for this button here, you have to shoot the gap, right? Like and it has to move in different ways to get to those buttons. Well, when you're trying to use aerial moves, you want to find them immediately. And so if my thumb's anchored like here, here, whatever else, when I start doing dash dances and stuff, let's say I had C right here, and let's say this was C left, right? So at that point, if I'm switching between directions, my thumb has to jump a little to get over this way from over this way, right? And vice versa, like it's even worse if you're shooting from this being right to this being left. You have to jump, you have to cover a large space. When these buttons are right next to each other, they're all on the same file. It's the same line. I just do this with my thumb. So I can go from being facing, like I can dash dance, and on a fucking moment's notice, a reaction, I can switch to forward air in that direction, or forward air in that direction, right? Like, there's no time. And especially when you're doing, like, double forward hop aerials in different directions, right? You want that to be as smooth as possible. And you want to be able to, like, do your aerials and land, and, like, L cancel it, and wave dash, right? Like, you want all your movement available without requiring shifting the hand at all. And that's what I have here. So next, jump, cancel, grab. You know, there's probably better jump, cancel, grab setups. I feel like this works just fine. So for jump, cancel, grab for me, I basically just do like left, and then I'll press right. I'll jump here. I'll grab here, right? So, oops. There you go. So the one thing is you got to make sure you're pressing jump with the right stagger in between the thumb, right? So that's the one thing. If you're getting dash grab, it's because you're not turning around for it. You're mistiming the stagger between the jump and the grab press. So, let's see. So after jump, cancel, grab, like that's pretty, like obviously my hand stays anchored here. It's not moving at all to do those, right? So, A button's next, right? Once again, like one of my old setups, my A button was up here, and I had to shift to top home row or shift my finger up to top home row anytime I wanted to do something that required A, which is pretty much just jabbing and doing tilts, because I used C-stick for all my aerials. So, but that meant that if I was going to do like a grab and then up throw, or up throw, depending on, you know, which of these buttons I want to do, that I had to then switch up here to be able to start doing tilts, which is just terrible. Or if I wanted to jab, if I wanted to pivot and then do a jab, like, but it put a lot of lag in between my actions. And what happened was it meant that because there was this transition period that was necessary, kind of like if you're Peach and you're on a GameCube controller and you want to do float canceled aerials and you like switch to this position to like hold the float and then like do the aerial move while floating, right? Sometimes like claw, like a half claw becomes necessary with Peach. And the Smashbox gives you the ability to have, you know, those types of control without requiring any type of claw stuff, right? Like if you have your layout right, that should never be an issue on this type of a setup. So if you have issues like that, where you're requiring to shift hand positions to do certain techniques, it probably means your layout is just suboptimal, right? And don't be sold on the idea that you're probably never going to find a perfect layout. I thought that that was the case. Like every single button combination I tried, there was always like maybe 3 techniques or something that I didn't have access to, or just didn't feel perfect. Like they were like, it's not great, but it's okay. It's doable. This layout, I finally managed to literally tweak everything to absolute perfection almost. Like it's amazing. The only issue that I have is with pivot nair. And it's still pretty good. Like it doesn't feel bad at all. And maybe like Wavedash had a light shield, right? Which, as you can see, it's pretty good, right? So, what else do I got on here, guys? Let's keep it moving. I covered the aerial moves. I covered L canceling. I've been hard canceling right here with L. As you can see, like, it requires no hand movement. Right? So, here it is. But the other thing is, I can do light shield to L cancel it. And what happens is, you saw right there, the second aerial didn't come out. That's on purpose. If I press this too early, right, it's not going to come out. But then when I hit this to L cancel, if you press it wrong, if you press it, if you press this a little too late, then you can get air dodge, right? And the other thing is, if you're L canceling with Z, so even worse than air dodge, which at least you can't air dodge until the IASA frames are over, so that's what was protecting me right there. But when you're using Z, you can cancel out in IASA frames into this. So when you're going to press it too early here, it's going to be like that. And if you press Z a little too high, it's going to give you a missed L cancel. So basically, you're going to try to do double forward air. You're going to eat the input on the second one because you did it a little too early. You're going to press this to try to L cancel it if you're one of the people that L cancels with Z. And you're going to basically do a nair, or if you're holding a direction, you're going to get whatever direction you're pressing as your aerial. And then you're going to miss the L cancel on that, which could be really bad. Like if I'm Ganon and I was too low to the ground to even have a forward air come out, I just landed with an un-L canceled forward air. Like that would be garbage, which isn't really going to happen because I don't do double forward airs with Ganon, but it could happen with back air, let's say, and that wouldn't be great. So if you're using Z instead of to do soft L cancels, you might consider using light shield. Because if I miss, you can see when I'm jumping in the air and I press light shield, nothing's going to happen. I'm not going to accidentally do an air dodge, ever. And I'm not accidentally going to do an aerial and miss an L cancel, ever. Right? And so the way I have it set up, I can do, instead of doing my L, right? You see my hand stays anchored over the home row. I can just reach up here and press this. And because this is a very long finger, it's like second longest. But the way the buttons are positioned, it's actually harder to keep these fingers anchored and reach up with the middle finger than it is to actually just reach up with this one. So you can just, let's see. I'm going to actually look at the screen. So it's like that. So, you know. So it's, you can basically get your L cancels there, and it's super easy. But I've been avoiding talking about one thing here, and that's C down, right? It's been the button, the elephant in the room, sitting right here in the middle of all my other movement stuff, and I haven't even talked about it. So let's talk about it. If I'm holding C stick down, most of you already know, if you get hit with a attack, then it ASDIs the attack, automatic smash DI. It's going to translate your character on each hit, right? It's going to translate your character in the direction that you're smash DIing, automatic smash DIing, right? By a certain amount, which is about half of a normal smash DI amount. So like this would translate your character a full smash DI unit. This will translate your character on each hit that you get hit by about half a smash DI unit. So it's still pretty dang good, right? Especially for multi-hit moves. But what's going to happen here is that if you're on the ground and you get tagged and it's not heavy enough to knock you onto the floor, then you're actually going to be put back into standing, and then you can counterattack. You can like jump cancel grab them or hit them with certain attacks like tilts and stuff, right? So pretty useful stuff. And we want to be able to do all of our movement, right? While still holding C stick down and without worrying about like accidentally spot dodging because I'm holding it and I press shield. right? So here, because L's only wave dash for me, after I've activated the jump, I don't have to worry about ever getting spot dodge because you can't, once you've jumped, it doesn't matter if you hold L, you're not going to be able to cancel that into a spot dodge. So that's cool. But at the same time, my shield is here on pinky, right? And so because these buttons are in very close proximity, it's very easy for me to say, oh, I want a shield now. Let go of one, press the other, right? So just like that. So I almost never get accidental spot dodge out of my C-stick down. But C-stick down's even greater than that. I've got more stuff for you guys. So let's do some aerial moves, right? Let's say we're jumping around, we're doing like, you know, double short hop aerials and stuff, right? And let's say we're like doing wavelands, right? And we're just like doing one waveland, do another waveland, right? We're doing stuff like that. If you were to do the waveland too early, let's see, and you get the triangle jump. There we go. I'm not good at doing it too early. Sorry, I only know the correct timing. But if you do it too early, what's going to happen is when you get the triangle jump like this, when you jump, you're still in lag from the triangle jump. So you're going to press jump and no jump's going to come out. And then you're going to press, like, because you just jumped, right? Now you're going to just press your C stick in a direction. So let me try to do it. God. Okay. I don't know. I can't fucking do it wrong anymore. But basically what's going to happen is you get the triangle jump, you press jump while you're in lag. Now you're standing on the ground and you press the C stick in a direction to do the forward air. But instead you get the F smash because you're grounded, right? Not good. I could even press C stick down after I jumped. Once I start my aerial, because I know what I'm trying to do. I can hold C stick down while I'm up there, right? But if my C stick is down and I'm wave landing, and let's say I got the triangle jump, right? So it ate my jump input. I'm still on the ground. You'll notice that when I'm pressing the C stick left and right, it's not forward smashing. So if I'm going to do like wave lands, right? I don't have to worry about accidentally like getting triangle jump and then like fucking it up and putting an F smash out when I didn't want one, because it's going to protect against that if my C stick is down. One thing it's not going to protect against is pressing C stick up, because this is second input priority. So I was holding down, now I'm holding C stick up. The C stick is up. And when it flips back into the down position, it's going to activate the down smash as soon as I let go of this. So you have to be aware of that. So if you're going to be trying to do up airs or up smashes, you want to make sure you're letting go of this. But I've got a perk on this too. So other than C down, what about C up? You'll notice that I'm pressing C up. And I'm not holding C stick down, but nothing's coming out. And the question is why, right? And the answer is it's only shifting up enough to where, and it's fairly lenient, but basically I'm not going to activate up smash on the ground, but if I'm in the air, I get up air, right? And the great part about this for like Marth or Ganon is that, let's say Marth, he's doing chain grabs, and then he wants to like, you know, do the lowest up air out of it. Well, if you were to time that up air wrong and you pressed it too early, then normally you would get jump canceled up smash. But what you can see is I'm pressing jump with tap jump, and I'm pressing C stick up. And it's too early for the up air, but what you're noticing is that there's no jump canceled up smash coming out, because when I'm grounded, I can't do jump canceled up smash with C stick up. So I don't have to worry about Marth accidentally throwing out his up smash, right? Unless I'm pivoting. if I want to, like, I have it to where mode is set up. Here's my mode button. That it has its own C-stick ranges. And we'll talk about mode soon. But because mode has its own C-stick ranges, I can still get full C-stick up if I really want it. Which would be out of a pivot, because that's what I use mode for. Or in case I needed to like get full aerial up, like full, you know, upward smash DI out of like Fox up air or something, right? I can hit mode and then I can hold that button. So I still have access to that. Now, let's talk about mode, right? We talked about light shield, we talked about aerials, we talked about, you know, movement, doing stuff, and making sure that our hand is really not moving at all. Like everything just is in the right place, and we barely ever have to shift top home row. So why are we going to ever shift top home row? Well, one of them's easy. One of them's the B button, right? Recoveries, the rare occasion I want to do a dancing blade or a counter, fair enough, right? Or the other thing would be that I wanted to do a pivot. And so my pivots are up here. These two buttons. And possibly the third one. So, if you look down here, you can see that I've got, like right down here, not in my crotch though, I've got mode, that's that M button, and tilt 1, right? And what mode does is, this is mirroring my inputs. So if I press left or right and I tap mode, you can see I'm doing dash dances, right? And I can tap it like slower if I want to do it slower. And the other thing about it, other than just being a mirror button, is like it's in position that I can like wave dash out of it, right? And you can like jump out of it, right? But it's not really easy to jump out of. And that's why I have Y over here. Just for like when I'm doing stuff with this and I pivot, I can like still do a short hop very quickly. Pretty much just for Nair. Just for short hop Nair. Everything else I don't really need it. So let's talk about how pivoting works. There's different ways you can do pivot on a Smashbox. Not just the way that I do it. One of the ways you can do it is to have a mirror button like mode or mirror and slide off the button. So like if you go like so you only want to hold it down for 1 frame, which is why you want to slide off the button as fast as possible. And you'll see that when you do that, you get a pivot. And if you want to use that technique, you probably want to have that button down here on the lower home row so that you can make sure that you slide off like this, and you're only going to get that 1 frame of being depressed. Otherwise, you're going to have problems with that method. It's not going to be consistent when you're trying to tap and release. But there are better methods than that. Some people, they'll, you know, do it the old-fashioned way, right? Dash one way, dash the other, and try to release, like, get that frame perfect release. I don't want to do it that way. It's too much work on the left hand and the wrist. For me, I can't do that comfortably. What other people will do, because that's kind of difficult, is they'll dash one way, they'll dash the other way, and then they'll hit down. Which, once again, I don't specialize in this method either, but there it is. So it's bop, bop, bop. I'm not good at it. I'm not even going to try. But the way that I do it is a little bit different. I wanted to make pivots as easy as possible. And so to do that, we have to take into account what makes pivots hard. And the things that make pivots hard are the idea that not only do we have to time it with a frame perfect window, like we have to dash one way, dash another way, and then on the frame where we're standing vertical, we have to input something, right? Or input nothing. We have to let go on that frame. That way we're standing, right? And that's difficult to do because not only do we have to have a frame perfect press, we need a frame perfect release. So to make that simpler, what we do is let's say we take, and you can do that either with left and right and a tilt button. Like, let's see, like that. Just like that, right? I pressed left, I pressed right for 1 frame, and on the next frame I hit tilt. And tilt is basically almost setting my controller back to neutral, enough so that you'll stick into the standing state, right? And I can do that with that, but I prefer to do it a little differently even than this method, a way that I figure is a lot easier and more consistent to do. Because I used to be fairly consistent with empty pivots on the GameCube controller, but I actually found the Smashbox was a bit harder, not to necessarily perform, but to perform it consistently back to back over and over again. I found that it was harder in that regard, because the GameCube controller, you can flick the stick and then let it snap back really quick, and that snapback is like the release. So like when you snap it, it taps the opposite direction just slightly for 1 frame and then goes back to neutral. And that's going to get you that nice like empty pivot, like dash back. It snaps here and just returns on its own. But without that, this became harder. So I had to make some modifications. The way that I do pivots here is I'll start you off with the basic one, and I'll show you my modified one that's even better. So what I'll do is I'll dash away, right? I hit mode, because that's my mirror, right? That's going to switch my direction. So I want to dash one direction and then dash the other. So I dash one way, and then I hold mode to dash the other way, right? And what you want to do is you follow that by immediately, frame perfect. You press mode, and then on the next possible frame, you press tilt. Like that. And it used to be I had mode here and tilt here, right? So I go plop, 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 like this. And you can see my thumb is right here to do grabs, to do jabs, right? To do tilts, because this was my tilt. If I activated the pivot with tilt, I can keep holding these buttons. This is what makes it so much easier than some of these other methods on a Smashbox, where you have to have the frame perfect release, is because you're already holding, you can hold these buttons down when you do, you see that? I'm still holding these down. I still got the pivot. The only thing I let go with is I let go of the direction afterwards so that I don't get slow turnaround afterwards, you see? You don't want that slow turnaround, so. But that's lenient. You can let go of that, you have a lot of time to let go of this. But you can keep holding these down. So it goes from being a frame perfect press and a frame perfect release to being a frame perfect press. That's what you want. So, how's it better than this? Well, it used to be that when you wanted to do a diagonal, right? You'll see that I can dash, but if I'm holding diagonal and I hit mode, it's not going to give me a dash in the opposite direction because I'm on a diagonal. Or so what you want to do is, instead of just holding sideways and then doing the pivot and then keep holding the tilt, right? And press like down tilt or up tilt or something, right? Instead of doing that, we can hold our good old button Y1. I told you this guy was coming back. Once again, Y1 coming to the rescue. This button will stop me from being able to tap jump. So one, if I'm going for up tilt, I never have to worry about tap jump. Once I hold mode, it also protects against tap jump. And once I hold tilt, it also protects against tap jump. So I'm never going to accidentally tap jump. And mode and tilt protect against dash tap jump as well as Y1. So you will never accidentally get a dash into a tap jump either with any of these buttons. So because all of them are working together to make sure that doesn't happen, you will very rarely get a dash into a jump when you're trying to do a pivot up tilt. But because of Y1, I can hold diagonal and still get dashes. And I can hold diagonal and get the dash in the opposite direction with mode. And because of that, I can literally just hit the diagonal, and then all I have to do is my frame perfect input, my frame perfect plink between mode and tilt, and then just hit the A button, right? Or just like that. So that's how it works, guys. It's very, very consistent because I've literally modified all the angles to remove all the margins of error that came with the setup. And the other thing that we have that's at our disposal that's also amazing, and this will probably be the last thing that I'm covering in this video for the most part, other than chain grabs, is that when we do a pivot, right, if we mess it up, so let's say like that, let's say we would have got dash attack, right? See that? I got dash grab because what I did was I did the pivot, I pressed the A button. If I mess the pivot up, I'm going to get dash attack every time, right? But dash attack can be turned into boost grab. And the boost grab gets more distance. Let's see. The boost grab gets more distance than the dash attack does. And you're less vulnerable than the dash attack. And if you happen to get the pivot but still mistimed it to get the dash attack going back towards them, if you were dashing away from them initially, then that's actually going to mean that you might get a pivot into a dash grab and maybe even land the grab. So it's almost always beneficial to boost grab any of your failed pivots if you're doing a pivot tilt, right? And this layout, you got this button, so you're doing down diagonal with your modifier held. You can hold this modifier the whole time. You do like that, right? Into that. And let's say, so it's bop, bop, bop. And then let's say you messed it up, then you go bop. So it's up. There you go. I was pressing it too late, right? There we go. See? So if you press it too late, you just bring your finger down here, you're going to get the boost grab. So pretty sick. So that's pivoting on the Smashbox when you do it right. Other than that, guys, I've got maybe one other thing I want to cover, and that's the grabs, right? Marth, his grab game is extremely important. So you want to be able to grab out of neutral movement position. And like, you know, I got nairs, I got forward airs, I got all my aerial moves, but I already covered jump cancel grab, so now I'm going to just talk about chain grabbing. When you chain grab, if you grab somebody, you can pummel them, right? But if you pummel them and hold C down, then you will get a frame perfect down throw. Even if they mash enough buttons to be able to break out of the grab, they can't break out of the grab until they're like one frame passes where you could have thrown them. And if you throw them on the first possible frame that you're able to, even if they pressed enough buttons to break out, they will not be allowed to break out. You'll get to throw them. So you can buffer the down throw with C down, but that's not as useful for Marth when he wants to up throw chain grab a lot of people. So one of the things you can do if you have the right setup is that you can use plinking, right? So you press up and C up, you know, either one and then the other, or vice versa. But the idea is that you're grabbing, you pummel. So like, here's my grab. I can pummel them with the same button, right? And then my thumb only has to move down one button. So I go grab, pummel, boom. Grab, pummel, boom. Grab, pummel, boom, right? And when you plink it, that means that your one frame window to have a frame perfect throw is now a 2 frame window to have a frame perfect throw. So that's going to basically make it that much easier, like twice as easy to make sure you get the frame perfect throw. And it's actually pretty doable. So just something for you guys to keep in mind if you're trying to get extra damage out of your punishes. And sometimes with up throw chain grabs especially, it's actually beneficial to let them realize that they are in a grab for a little bit longer. Let them think about, how they want to DI, because most people are kind of predictable. And if they have to just react instantly, it's more likely that they're going to be able to come up with something random than if they get to think about it a little while. They'll be like, well, I DI'd backwards the last 2 times. Maybe I should DI forward now, right? So the more time we give them to think about it, the less likely they're going to actually come up with something completely random, which is, so, take your pummels, get your damage in. Other than that, like if I get my grab and I up throw, like you can see that my tilt, like my A button is right here. My pinky's right here. I can tilt and do like up tilts out of my chain throw, like my chain grab, right? I can up throw them and then I can just, like if I want to up throw them like that, I can just, boom, I can just do stuff. The other thing is I can do, up air, right? But all 3 of those buttons are right here, and the tilt's right here. So like I have, full access to up tilt, up air, and re-grabbing without moving my hand more than just this. And then beyond that, if I feel like I have enough time, I can do a pivot here. Like I can switch up and pivot. And since that's easier because I can hold down diagonal the whole time, then I could just, do that. So, chain grabs are pretty great. If you have a setup, you need to make sure all your techniques fit together, especially if they're supposed to fit together, right? Chain grab, if you're doing it, you should be able to do up tilts, you should be able to do re-grabs, and you should be able to do up airs like immediate. You shouldn't have to have any transition time between those, depending on the character that you're playing. And lastly, the pivot nair. The reason I said that, I have the Y button over here is because, let's say I do the empty pivot, right? And then I jump. And I could just do like that. So, let's see. And I still need practice on this one, but... because I haven't practiced this one just yet. But that's kind of how you do it. And it's really just because there was no better place that I could fit the Y button, that all the other buttons were, just in such a great position. So this was the only compromise that I had to make with my setup, to make sure, because, if I'm doing a pivot, I'm up on top home row. I don't want to have to try to reach down here to hit jump. It's just too slow. And you're losing accuracy there. So having one that's immediately accessible here was useful. And the only other thing that I can put out there is if you're going to jump and you want to do like double jump, no impact land to plat like that, it's easier to do when you're using jump, jump, and up, right? Because it's a 3-frame window. If you are only using this and you're double tapping, it's a 1-frame window. You have to time it perfectly when you leave the ground. And as you can see, it's not very easy to get. It really requires practicing the timing, but if you can actually just kind of do it, on a 3-frame window, there you go. It's a lot easier. Ah! There you go. So, make it easier on yourself. I felt like having these 2 buttons together also allowed me to execute my jump here and then plink these to have an easier time hitting this here. And once again, like you can do this and then re-tap this one too. Like you can really get a large window to execute the battlefield, like, no impact land on the side plat. That's Marth. I think that's about all I got, guys. Hopefully this video was informative. Hopefully it kind of helped you think about some of the things that you can do to structure your guys' layouts optimally, efficiently, what to look forward to, like what to look for, how to position some of your buttons, making sure that the thumb buttons are the buttons that you need immediate access to no matter what, whereas like your movement should be around your anchored home row position, and the other buttons make sense where you put them. Take it easy, guys, and I will see you in the future. Peace.